Hi, KB here. I have recently bought an Amaran 100D and a softbox to hopefully improve the lighting in my YouTube videos. But when I first powered on the light, I was a bit disappointed by the noise that the fan made. I sit in a fairly small room, only 2.3 by 3.5 meters, with no sound treatment other than carpet, and I plan to have the light really close to me. I have no doubt that in a big studio setting, nobody would notice the fan, but in my setup it's too loud for my taste. It's not the sound of the air flowing through the device, but more of a rattling noise, perhaps a bad or cheap bearing in the fan. It could be that I just got unlucky and got a bad unit. I know that Aputure has made it possible to change the fan to smart mode, and that lowers the noise significantly when the light is cool. But when the light heats up, the fan starts running faster, and eventually it reaches the same speed as when it is running in the standard medium mode. So the tests and measurements I've done are made at the medium setting, as that is the speed the fan would probably end up going anyway, unless you run the light at a very low brightness. I've tried to put my microphone really close to the fan to record the sound. I'll play it back here. Of course the sound level is amplified, otherwise you would have a hard time hearing anything. I've put the sound clip through a frequency analyzer, and you can see the result here. There is a low frequency top, which is probably just the air blowing on the microphone and the self-noise of the microphone, but also a higher pitched sound. It shows as this spike around 1450 Hz. I've done some research and I found that Pascal Richter has found a similar problem, only worse, with the earlier version of the Amaran 200D. His solution was to replace the fan with a high quality fan. I've put a link to his excellent video up in the corner and down in the description. So I'm going to do the same operation on my 100D light. And I must warn you, only do this if you're confident in your ability to take apart, solder and put together a delicate device like this light. It will of course void the warranty, and I take no responsibility for what happens with you or your device. I'm able to read the fan's model number through the cooler. I put it up here in the corner. And it seems to be a 80 by 80 by 25 mm 12 volt 3-pin fan. And by searching for the model number, it looks to be a 2200 RPM fan. I've bought a similar spec fan from Noctua for around 17 euros, the NF A8 FLX. The only difference is that it's only going up to 2000 RPM. But I'll be doing some extensive testing to see if the light gets hotter during operations. I'll also do some sound recordings of the light with the original fan, so I can compare it to the new fan. I'm going to fast forward through the disassembly. I recommend you watch Pascal's video for detailed instructions on how to take it apart. The only build difference between the 100D and the 200D is that the 200D is equipped with a slightly larger 92 by 92 mm fan. First I'll remove the top cover. It has 6 screws holding it in place. Keep track of the screws so that you can remember which screw goes where. 4 screws hold the bounce mount. To free the COB and heatsink assembly, I'll remove the 6 screws in the front and the 2 screws on the bottom. There are 2 black brackets that hold the heatsink. Those can be removed by unscrewing 2 screws in each. The space is tight, so a slim screwdriver is needed. I'm careful not to bend the fins on the heatsink. Next, I'll remove the 4 screws holding the back cover. Remove the ribbon cable by unlatching the black lever on the connector on the circuit board. Unsolder the fan wires. I'll note the position of the black ground wire. Remove the 2 black screws that hold the PCB. Now the heatsink PCB and back cover can be removed. I'm using a slim Torx screwdriver to remove the screws that holds the fan. Let's slow down for a while to take a look at what you get in the Noctua package. Of course we get the wonderfully brown and beige fan itself. I don't mind the color scheme here, as the fan is not visible once it's mounted inside the device. To the right are 4 rubber mounting pins that you can use instead of screws to mount the fan in a computer case. They help decoupling the fan from the case so that vibrations are not transferred to the case. The fan has a 20 cm wire. The bearing feels smooth and tight. The original fan actually also feels fine. No wobbling. There is a 30 cm extension cord included in the box. One ultra low noise adapter that limits the maximum RPM to 1200. A 4-pin Molex adapter if you want to power the fan that way. And another low noise adapter that limits the maximum RPM to 1650. I'm gonna sacrifice the extension cord to use the male connector to solder to the PCB. That way I won't have to cut off the connector from the fan itself. I'm removing the rubber vibration pads from the top side. Screw the new fan to the bottom cover with the 4 Torx screws. I'm cutting the wire to around 5 cm and priming the ends with a bit of solder. Solder the extension cord to the PCB. The yellow RPM signal wire goes on top, the red power wire in the center and the black ground wire at the bottom. I'm putting the COB and heatsink assembly back. It takes a little bit of fiddling to get it positioned. Slide the PCB back and fasten it with the 2 screws. Connect the fan and fit the wires and connectors where they won't interfere with the power connector on the back cover. Attach the back cover with the 4 screws. I'm pre-mounting the screws in the brackets. That makes it easier to mount them in the tight space. No! I just realized I totally forgot to plug in the ribbon cable. So I'll finish mounting the brackets and remove the back cover to reattach the ribbon cable afterwards. Open the little lever on the connector and stick the cable into the connector. Then close the lever to lock the cable. And I'm putting the back cover on again. Use the 6 screws to fasten the heatsink assembly. And the 2 screws at the bottom. Attach the bounce mount with the 4 screws. And finally I can put the top cover back on with the 4 screws. And remember the 2 small screws at the bottom of the handle. Now that I have replaced the fan, I can already tell that the new fan is much quieter. If I put my ear to the light, I cannot hear the fan. The only sound I can hear is the sound of the air flowing through the cooler fins. And if I put it at an arm's length away, I cannot hear anything. I'll record the sound of the fan the same way I did before I replaced the fan. I set the same gain on my microphone and place it 6 cm above the surface of the device. I have boosted the sound level of the recordings by the same amount. Let me play them back to you. I'll switch between the recordings and put a note on the screen which recording you're listening to. I have put the recording through the frequency analyzer, and I'll put both frequency plots on the screen. As you can see, those annoying spikes at certain frequencies from the original fan are completely absent on the Noctua fan. To compare the cooling capabilities, I have run the light at 100% for 45 minutes with both the original and the new fan. I'm using the Aputure Sidus Link app to measure the internal temperature of the light. I have set the fan mode to Smart for the measurements, as the medium mode just sets a fixed speed. The room temperature was around 21 degrees Celsius when I did the original measurements, and around 23 degrees Celsius when I did the Noctua measurements. Here are my findings. The medium mode sets a fixed speed pretty close to each other, 1021 RPM for the original fan and 994 RPM for the Noctua fan, and it maintains a temperature close to the room temperature when the light is running at 1% brightness. When I set the fan mode to Smart, bump the brightness to 100% and start the timer, things starts happening. We can see that the original fan peaks at around 60 degrees Celsius after 20 minutes, with a fan speed around 1040 RPM. The Noctua fan peaks at only 55 degrees Celsius after 20 minutes, with a fan speed of around 1010 RPM. So not only is the Noctua fan much more silent, it is also superior at cooling. Not surprisingly, I'm very happy with the replacement. Given the better cooling capabilities of the new fan, I could perhaps get away with installing the included low noise adapter and still maintain proper cooling. But since I already can't hear the noise, I haven't bothered with that. As always, comments are welcome below. And to help me out, please like and subscribe. Until next time, be happy and have fun.